If I were to ask you what the scariest movie you ever saw was, I think that your answer probably would reveal something about your age. Let's try it, shall we? For example, if this is your scariest movie, Cloverfield, or something like Paranormal Activity, etc., you are probably of the young persuasion. If your favorite movie is The Blair Witch Project or Scream, you've added a few more years onto your age. If your favorite movie is Jaws or Alien, you gained a couple of decades. Now, if your favorite movie, which is my favorite movie, is Psycho, you have an AARP card. I do. Yep. See, I think it's because you always remember that which made you scream the very first time. I was 8 years old when my older sister snuck me into Rogers Theater in Poplar Bluff to see Psycho. 8 years old. For 2 years, I did not take a shower. And that is the truth. I'm not making it up. And if you saw Psycho, you know what I mean. Yeah. But you know, there was a part of it, even though I was shower phobic and only took tub baths for 2 years, even though I was shower phobic, it was fun to be scared. It is. For that hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is, you bond with all the other people who are screaming their heads off. Especially, you know what I mean? Especially that time. You're bonded to them. The neatest thing of all, though, is that you can scream and get all scared. You leave the theater, you close the door behind you, and it's gone. Oh, you might have nightmares for the rest of your life, but by and large, it's nothing to it, you know. You can put it behind you. And you know where I'm going with this sermon, don't you? Because it's one thing to be scared in a theater and shut the door and leave and go on to dinner or something. It's another thing to deal with real life issues that scare you, and there is no door to exit out of and close behind you. Whether it's concern and fright over what tomorrow is going to hold, or next week, or next month, or next year, what it's going to hold in the office, or in the classroom, or in the living room, whether it deals with a health issue, a financial issue, a job issue, whether it's dealing with a concern over a loved one, or how you're ever going to do this, if that happens, whatever it is, the experience of fear is that which can be debilitating and paralyzing. What I'd like to suggest is that story that you heard, that parable of Jesus, if we take a moment, dig through some of the harshness which is on purpose in that story, and it is a pretty harsh parable, can't deny that. But if you put some of that aside and layer it out a little bit, I believe that old story of Jesus's can give us an understanding, a perspective on fear, and also how to deal with it better. Jesus fills the story, as he did many of his parables, with exaggeration because you remember it. As a matter of fact, after the last service, one of the persons come out of leaving the sanctuary said, you know, that Bible passage is one that's always caused me problems. Good, because some passages are supposed to. They make us, their roughness sort of smooths out the rough places in our soul, if you will. And this is a good example. The exaggeration of Jesus' parable dealt with a rich man who was really, really, really rich. His wealth was measured in talents. A talent in Jesus' day was the equivalent of 6,000 times the average wage of a typical worker. 6,000 times. And so to three of the workers, to three of the slaves or the servants, this rich man gives to one of them 5 talents, another 2, and the third 1. You know the story. The 5-talent guy comes back with 10. The 2-talent comes back with 4. Everything is great. Enter into the joy of your master. But the one with the 1 talent, you know what he did. He buries it, covers it up, put barbed wire around it, surveillance cameras and motion detectors. You know, I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but you get the idea. Why? Because you hear what he says when the master returns. I was afraid. I was afraid. I was scared. Isn't that interesting? I was scared. Scared of what? Scared that he would lose it on the way to investing it. Scared that the market would drop and he would look bad. Scared that there would be problems that he could not foresee and would not have the wherewithal to deal with. Scared that he would be punished. And because he was scared, he didn't do anything other than just bury it and look at it. He was scared into inactivity. And because of that, the very thing he was scared of came true. The very thing. I think his story and getting into his mind illustrates the nature of fear. Tony Robbins, the motivational guy, he described fear in terms of an acronym that I think is pretty accurate. He said fear is false evidence that appears real. False evidence that appears real. The servant had this in his mind that he couldn't do anything with this talent that would be productive. The servant had in his mind that he was too weak, that things were too bad out there, that he couldn't do anything. And so with that type of false evidence, if you will, with that type of misperception, he was paralyzed, and his own worst fears came true. Isn't that what happens when we're scared? We let our imaginations run wild, and we start believing things that are false and think that they are true or will happen. In the olden days, BK, before kids, I used to ski every year. Take a week out, and I love snow skiing. Go to Colorado or Utah or Northern California, and occasionally we would take groups, invite friends to go along. And you know what I would hear when I would invite a non-skier friend to join in a ski trip? Invariably, one of the most popular responses when I said, would you like to go skiing for a week? The response was, oh, I could break a leg. Isn't that normal? I could break a leg. They don't say, oh, I could dance on top of a mountain and glide down the snow. I could feel and hear the crunching of snow under my skis. Oh, I could see the panorama of God's beauty, landscape, of God's easel, of God's canvas under my feet as I dance down that mountain. Oh, I can smell the aroma of the alpine air carrying scents of aspen and evergreens and pine. No, they don't say any of that when I ask them to go skiing. Their response is, oh, I could break a leg. Is that what happens to you and me when we have something that is exciting, filled with promise perhaps, and we're too scared to do anything about it because I might break a leg. I might break a leg if I start that new business. I might break a leg if I start that new relationship. I might break a leg if I am honest with the boss or with my spouse or with my child. I could break a leg if.